Let me put you into a very real moment. You've been searching for a home for weeks, maybe for months. You've seen places in Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax. Maybe you've even stretched into McLean or Vienna, and you finally found the one. It feels right. You write an offer, maybe you compete, maybe you win, and for a brief moment, you exhale. You think, okay, we did it. And then your lender sends over a document. And it's not one page. It's not simple. It's dense. It's detailed. It's full of numbers that don't quite match what you had in your head. And you start scanning it. And somewhere between line 8 and line 22, you stop. And you think, what is all of this? That moment right there, that's what this video is about. If you're watching this, you're probably in one of a few groups. You're a first-time buyer trying to get your footing, or you've bought before, but not in the Northern Virginia market, not recently, and not here. Or you're relocating from New York, from Texas, from California, and you're realizing very quickly that Northern Virginia plays by its own rules. And let me tell you something honestly. Even very successful, very intelligent people, doctors, attorneys, military officers, consultants, they sit across from me and they say, Brian, just walk me through this like I'm new to it. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Before I got into real estate 20 plus years ago, I practiced law. And that experience shaped how I do this job because I saw the same pattern over and over again. People delay asking questions, not because they don't care, but because they assume they'll understand it later. And later is usually when it's more expensive. I saw people spend thousands fixing things that could have been prevented with one conversation early on. And closing costs, this is one of the biggest versions of that. So let's slow this way down. Closing costs are not random. They're not something that someone made up at the last moment. They're not junk fees being thrown in at the end. They're structured, but they are presented all at once. And when you see everything in one place, it feels overwhelming. So instead of looking at it as one giant number, I want you to think of it like 3 conversations. There's the loan, there's the settlement process, and there's the money that you're setting aside up front. That's it. 3 conversations. And once you understand those, everything starts to click. Let's start with the loan, because this is where people think they're making a smart decision. But sometimes they're not. You talk to a lender, they give you a rate. Maybe it sounds good. Maybe you even compare 2 or 3 lenders and the rates are similar. So you think to yourself, okay, this is basically the same. It's not. I had a client, a very smart guy, analytical and very detail oriented. He came to me with a quote from a big name online lender. It looked clean. It looked competitive. He said, I think this is the best deal. I said, great, let's just compare it. We put it side by side with one of the lenders that I work with regularly. Same loan type, same rate. But when we really dug down and got into the details, he was paying almost $5,000 more. And he had no idea. That's not unusual. The truth is, you are not shopping for a rate. You're shopping for clarity, structure, and execution. Because here's the part that no one talks about enough. If your lender is disorganized, if they're slow, if they miss something, you don't just lose money, you can lose the deal. And this is where I'm very intentional. The lenders that I connect my clients with, they don't just send you numbers and expect you to figure it out. They walk you through everything, line by line. They'll literally say, here's what this fee is. Here's why it exists. Here's what you can control and what you can't. And if something doesn't make sense, you stop, you ask, and they explain it clearly. No rushing, no pressure, especially for first-time buyers. They're used to that process. They expect questions. They welcome them. Because the goal is not just to get you approved. The goal is for you to actually understand what you are signing. And by the way, if you want a real breakdown based on your situation, not a generic estimate, reach out to me. I'll connect you with one of my lenders and we'll map this out together early, before you're under pressure. Now, let's talk about the part that people tend to gloss over, but shouldn't. In Northern Virginia, we typically use settlement companies, not attorneys running the closing like in some other states. And you'll see things like title search, title insurance, settlement fee, recording fees. And most people look at that and think, okay, I guess this is just part of it. Let me translate what this actually means in real life. You're buying not just the house, but the legal right to own the house. And I've seen situations, real ones, where there was an old lien that had not been cleared, or a recording error from years ago, or an ownership issue buried in paperwork. And if that doesn't get caught, then that becomes your problem. That's what this process is protecting you from. This is where my legal background really comes in, because I have seen what happens when things go wrong. Not hypothetical, not in theory, in real transactions with real money at stake. This is one of the things that people don't love paying for, title insurance, because it doesn't feel tangible. You don't see it like a kitchen or a backyard, but it's protecting your ownership. And if there's ever a problem, it can save you from a very expensive situation. If you're the kind of person who likes to understand the why behind things, this is exactly why you don't want to go into a contract blind. Reach out early. We'll walk through all of this before you ever make an offer. Now, here's where most buyers feel it. You're reviewing your numbers, everything feels manageable, and then you see this section and the number jumps. And you think, wait, what is this? This is not a fee. This is money you're setting aside early. Things like property taxes, homeowners insurance, prepaid interest, HOA or condo dues. I had a client buying in Fairfax around $850,000. We talked through everything. But when the final numbers came in, the escrow and prepaid section was higher than she expected. She paused, she looked at me, and she said, I feel like I missed something. And I said, no, you didn't miss it. You just haven't experienced it yet. That's the difference. In Northern Virginia, it's very normal for this category alone to be $5,000, $8,000, $10,000, even $12,000 plus, depending on the home, the taxes, and the timing. This is where deals can get shaky, because buyers plan for the down payment, but not always for the full picture. And when that gap shows up late, it creates stress. I've worked with a lot of military clients over the years. Pentagon, Fort Belvoir, Quantico, Coast Guard headquarters, DHS, and VA loans are one of the best tools out there. Let me tighten this up just a bit. People tend to focus on the rate, not the total cost. They wait too long to ask questions, and they underestimate the amount of cash needed. They try to DIY something that shouldn't be DIY'd. Here's the truth. This does not have to feel overwhelming. When it's done right, it actually feels very clear because you understand what you're paying, why you're paying it, and what your options are. So let's answer the question directly. How much are closing costs? In Northern Virginia, most buyers fall somewhere between 1.5% and 2% and 5% of the purchase price. So on an $800,000 home, you're typically looking at $16,000 to $40,000. And yes, that's a wide range because your loan, your timing, your structure all affect that number. If you want clarity on your number, not just a range, reach out, I'll walk you through it. And I'll have one of my lenders break it down with you step by step. No guessing. If you're even thinking about buying in Northern Virginia, reach out early. We'll map it out together, and my lenders will walk you through every number until it makes complete sense. No pressure, just clarity. And if this helped you, subscribe to my channel and watch my other YouTube videos on specific costs and neighborhoods. Because once you understand the numbers, everything else gets easier.